Welcome back to another monthly update of my favorited stocks, and what a month it's been. I guess it's not too surprising because it has been earnings call month, but out of all of the stocks that I follow, I think Verona is the only one that's had a positive month this month. All the others have had bad news or a hit to their stock price. So there's going to be quite a lot to go through this video, and that's before we get to the up and coming catalysts for next month. So I think a good place to start is with Urogen because that had some really quite bad news. So here on the investors page, if we go down, we can see here on the 7th of May, they found out they were going to need an FDA AdCom. And then scrolling up, by the 21st of May, they already had the results. And unfortunately, they weren't good results. It was a negative AdCom meeting. Now, as we know, this is a significant knock to the chance that they are now going to be approved. However, if we do scroll in, we can see here that the vote was 4 people in favour to 5 not in favour. So they only missed it by a narrow margin. So that does mean that there's a slightly better chance, even though it's still significantly reduced from before the AdCom. Another thing to note that it was the urologist that voted in favour. I guess that's not too surprising considering they didn't do a control arm in their trial. Given the significant drop in share price, it might still be worth betting on Urogen. However, the statistical probability of them passing now is well below 50%. So let's move on to another big mover this week. If I go back to Ticker and let's take a look at an old favourite of mine, Ardelyx. So I've already done a video on Ardelyx, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but suffice to say it had a very bad quarter. It missed on top line, it missed on bottom line, and it also looked like they diddled the numbers a little bit to make it look better than it was. So instead of the staggering $41 million loss in the quarter, it was actually 45. So if we go to the discounted cash flow, we can see here that I've still got a target for around $8 for the company. But if we look at the figures below, this does rely on them reaching the $1 billion IBRX sales, $750 million exposure sales at a 70% margin, plus an additional $250 million ex-US sales at gross profit. So for me, at the moment, the exposure sales are definitely in question here, and the ex-US sales have yet to be proven. So if these weren't to eventuate, we could see a number closer to 1,200, and that changes the target quite significantly. For the hope of myself and other shareholders, I'm hoping that Ardelyx can turn around its run of bad quarters recently. But whatever happens, I think it's clear now it's not going to be the company I was hoping it would be. So next, let's take a look at Iovance. So Iovance also had a rough month, and we can see that if we go and take a look at the stock price. If we change this to 1 month, we can see the massive drop here from over $3 to down below $2. And this is because they changed the annual guidance from a whopping 400 to 450 million down to just 250 to 300 million. Now that is a significant drop, and you can see why it would have affected the stock price so much. But if I take you back to Ticker and the discounted cash flow, I've actually got a target of around $5.58 for this stock. That represents a 221% upside. And the reason for that, if I scroll down, we can see here I've got a peak gross profit of around $1.8 billion. And that is because they haven't changed their peak sales revenues. If we open the notes up here, we can see that's $1 billion US and $2 billion ex-US. And I've applied a 70% gross for US and a 55% gross ex-US. Now, if they can reach these targets, which they didn't downgrade like the annual revenues, then that's when we're going to see this figure. And that doesn't even take into account the other pipeline trials. It's still in a very risky area with a lot of competition. But if you are willing to take that risk, then I would definitely recommend taking a look at this stock at this price. So next in the list to take a look at is Aquestive. So again with Aquestive, let's take a look at their stock price. Go to the 1 month, and we can see here that it also had a significant drop here at the ER. And I think the main reason for this with the ER is because it's delayed its Aquestive 108 trial. And if we go back to Ticker, take a look at the points, Aquestive 108, we can see here that they were expecting Aquestive 108 to have a potential of $500 million in sales. Now that's a significant portion of the peak sales for Aquestive, so it's no wonder that the stock price took a hit. And the other thing that happened this quarter is that they had a low net income. So of course concerns about runway have come up again. However, they have stated again that they should be good until the launch of Anaphylm. So if we go back to the chart, we can see here that there's actually been a good recovery since the drop. And for me, this actually reflects the thoughts that I had about the ER. Because when I listened to it, I felt there's a really upbeat tone to it. It sounded like they were not only confident, but they were excited about the upcoming FDA decision. Not only that, but they said they were not just prepared for an AdCom, they were actually hoping for one. They believe that they have the strongest trial data for any epinephrine product, and if they have a successful AdCom, they're almost guaranteed to get approval. So if we go back to Ticker Taco and take a look at the DCF, you can see here that I've got a whopping 408% upside for this stock. And if I scroll down, that is made up of $1 billion Anaphylm sales, $100 million Libervant, and $500 million of Aquestive 108, all at a 70% margin. Now you could say that because of the delay of Aquestive 108, this should be down a bit, so maybe put that in at 1000. But even if you were to add that, you can still see there's a significant upside to be had here. This depends, of course, on Aquestive executing well. But the fact that they hold their patents past the 10-year mark, and on top of that, they have other possibilities for products, I think this is a very exciting stock to take a look at. And I definitely recommend doing that if you haven't already. So next stock in the list is Capricor. So again, with Capricor, the place to start is the stock chart. 1 month. And again, almost the same story here as Capricor. So we have a drop here at the start of the month, and that was because they announced that they needed an AdCom for their EMEA sale. And then they had their earnings around the 13th, and then we saw a steady incline from then on. And again, for me, the same as Aquestive, I really don't think that the drop was justified here. Because their EMEA sale is mostly targeting the younger population, it's much more common for the FDA to require an AdCom. So thankfully, this allowed me to buy some more shares in Capricor around the $7 mark. So I'm pretty happy with that purchase and looking forward to the outcome of the AdCom. We don't yet have any details about when the AdCom is going to be, but when I do get those details, I'll be sure to update Ticker Taco. So make sure that you're subscribed to notifications to get an email when that happens. So if we go back to Ticker Taco, the next stock that I want to take a look at is Verona Pharmaceuticals. So Verona had another really good quarter, and we can go and take a look at the revenue streams here. And you can see that we're just continuing here on a strong upward path. It certainly looks at the moment that they're going to hit that $5 million mark for their peak sales. If I go to the DCF, you can see I've got a 19% upside here. And if I go down to the workings, that's with a peak gross profit of $3.5 billion. So if they continue on their path to $5 million, then there's still another 20% upside here. And there's potential, of course, that they could even exceed that. So finally in the list is ImmunityBio. And if we go and take a look at the stock chart and look at the 1 month, it's quite interesting. We can see a hit here at the start of the month, but not too much. And that's because they released some news. So if we go back to Ticker Taco, we go to the website, we scroll down to press releases, view all, and then here it is. So ImmunityBio announced that the FDA had given a refusal to file letter. This is for their extension of Anktiva into unresponsive papillary disease. As you'd be able to tell from the tone of this news, ImmunityBio was really shocked about this news. And this is certainly going to have an effect on their revenue. So I'm really waiting to see what happens with this urgent meeting. We haven't had any more news about this yet, but I'll update it in Ticker Taco Catalyst as soon as I know. Another piece of news that they did have is that they signed a strategic memorandum of understanding to launch the Cancer BioShield platform in the Middle East. So although there was a lot of talk on StockTwits about this, I don't think it was really that significant news. They really haven't committed to anything. So until they do that, I really don't think that this is going to move the needle. And in fact, if we go back to the stock price, this came out around the 27th. Yeah, you can see that the stock price really hasn't moved at all from this yet. Okay, so if I go back to Ticker Taco, as you can see, it's been an important month for nearly all of the stocks that I've been holding. And I think that some of them are at more attractive prices than they were before. But I am hoping for better months ahead with the stocks that I have invested in. So this leads us to the upcoming month. And if I take a look at catalysts, so we are still waiting for the Iovance United Kingdom approval and also the Canadian approval, which could also come this coming month. For IBRX, we were promised the colon cancer phase 2 results in the second half of the year. So it's probably unlikely that they're going to be coming out in the first month, but you never know. And then this is going to be a big one because this is Urogen, the PDUFA date on the 13th. As I've mentioned, it doesn't look likely that it's going to pass now, but if it does, that's going to be a very strong boost to this stock price. If it isn't approved, then unfortunately, I think that the future of this company is at risk. This is another thing that I'm really looking forward to, which is the Day 74 letter for Aquestive. That's due on the 14th of June. And the reason that this is so important is because they are hoping for the priority review. And the reason that they're hoping for priority review is because ARS Pharmaceuticals got priority review for Neffy, and this makes it more likely that Anafilm, being a very similar product, could also get priority review. I think that with priority review, we should see a boost in stock price. If we don't get it, unfortunately, I think we'll see a fall. So that actually brings us to an end of the catalyst I'm expecting for these stocks in the next month. Like I say, fingers crossed, I really hope it's a good month for these stocks. I think a lot of us investors out there are needing one after the last few months.